Okay. All right. So we are so thankful to you all for joining us today. We want to speak to you about some issues that you might be dealing with during your time as RAs. And before I dive in, I just want to note that our presentation today will touch on some really sensitive issues involving sexual violence. And we want to encourage you to please feel free to take care of yourselves during this presentation. And if that means turning off your screen, that's great. If it means stepping away for a few minutes if you need to, that's perfectly fine. And so I just want to, make space for that before we begin. With that, our goals for the training are pretty simple. So we want you to come away from this training knowing that there are resources at Stanford to support people who have been impacted by sexual violence and how to reach out to those resources if you should ever need to do so. And that includes both confidential and non-confidential resources, including the people on screen that you'll be hearing from today. We also want to make sure that you feel comfortable in your own role as RAs and how you might be supporting someone in the aftermath of them making a disclosure of sexual violence to you. And of course, we want you to know that you're not alone in this. We are here to assist you and support you as needed. So as I mentioned, I'm the Deputy Title IX Coordinator for Students, and I'm part of the SHARE Title IX office. This SHARE stands for Sexual Harassment, Assault, Response, and Education. And this is a new name, but it's familiar folks who have been around at Stanford for a while. Essentially, this past year, 3 different offices combined into the SHARE Title IX office, and we are now one central resource for students who are impacted by issues of sexual violence at Stanford. We consist of 2 different teams, the response team, which is led up by my supervisor, the Title IX coordinator, and the education team, and Carly, as mentioned, is here representing them today. It's important to note that we are operating remotely right now because of COVID restrictions. And just like you all, we are, just waiting to hear on when those will be lifted and when we'll be back on campus. This picture is of our beautiful office, Kingscote Gardens, which, we're eager to get back to. But for now, we are definitely here for you. We are available by email. I stuck the response team's email up here, Title IX. It's very basic, Title IX at Stanford. And everyone here will be sharing their contact information as well. So speaking for my team, the response team, we are essentially the people at Stanford who are tasked with enforcing our sexual harassment policy, and that can be found in Admin Guide 1.7.1. You all might have heard about some Title IX regulations that came forward from the federal government last year, and in response to those, Stanford had to revise its policies and procedures. And this new policy, 1.7.1, now contains all prohibited sexual conduct at Stanford. That includes conduct that the federal government has defined as Title IX conduct, as well as university prohibited conduct, which goes above and beyond the government's definitions. I won't be reading it to you today. I do encourage you to look it up on your own time, but it includes these categories of conduct. So sexual harassment, sexual assault, relationship violence, stalking, violation of a university or court order when there's underlying sexual harassment related conduct, and then retaliation and intimidation. So to move into your role as responsible employees, as RAs, you are responsible employees at Stanford. And what that means is that if you know or should have known in the exercise of reasonable care about one of those categories that I just read to you, you are required to report that to the Title IX coordinator. And to be clear, you're required to report anything that you should have known or know about in connection with your student staff role. So if a friend confides something into you, totally separate from your role as an RA, you're not required to report that. And if you have any doubt about it, we would encourage you to consult with us. You can do that before you share names so that you can find out whether in fact you have to report something before you actually go ahead and make the report. Because you are responsible employees, we ask you to be really clear and upfront about that so that your residents and people you're dealing with know that you have reporting obligations. We would encourage you to tell your residents early and often about this responsibility of yours. And if you're ever in a conversation that feels like it's headed in the direction of a disclosure, I would encourage you to just really gently pause the person and remind them of your reporting obligations. Let them know that you are there for them and that you want to help, but that there are also confidential resources if they would feel more comfortable with one of those. And we're really aware of the fact that you are often the very first point of contact for someone who has experienced something in the realm of sexual harassment or sexual assault. And we would ask you to just be mindful of the language that you're using, and for example, instead of, oh, if you tell me about that, I would have to tell the Title IX coordinator, we would ask that you think about using language along the lines of, I want to help you. And if you tell me about something that falls into sexual violence, I would want to share that with the Title IX office or something along those lines. So, gentle language that inspires confidence and lets the person know that you and we as a university are here to help them. If they do, in fact, ask to speak to a confidential resource, the two most important resources are the confidential support team and the YWCA, both of whom are here to speak to you today. So I will say that for them. You should just know that these are two confidential resources that are totally free and available to help students. And they'll get into that a little bit more. Now, if someone does end up sharing or making a disclosure to you, you should have received a training on reporting requirements. Just a few reminders. If anyone is in danger, if there's an emergency situation, 911 should be your go-to. The Share Title IX office is not an emergency resource, and we're not a 24/7 resource. So we really want to make sure people are getting the help they need. And so 911 is available, as you know, for that. There's also your next stop, or your first stop in most cases, should be your RD on call. That's another resource that's available 24/7, and they are very well versed in these matters. They can walk you through next steps, including reporting to Title IX. They can also organize temporary interim measures that might be necessary. And I know that obviously you're not expected to memorize every word of this presentation, but they are very familiar with the confidential and non-confidential resources. So your RD on call is a really good resource for you. And again, your RD on call will be able to walk you through this, but you may need to make a Clary report. That's when you call the information into the Department of Public Safety if it meets certain criteria. You won't be providing anyone's names to the police unless the complainant has specifically given you permission to do so. And then finally, we ask that RAs report to Title IX via an electronic form. The link should be up on the screen, and you'll be prompted to enter certain information like names, dates, locations, and what was shared. And again, you can contact us for a consult at any point. So as far as next steps after that, when we receive a concern, I'm just keeping my eyes on the time, we want to kind of demystify that a little bit for you so that you can then do that for your residents if they need that. When we receive a concern, in almost every case, our first step is to send what we call a gentle outreach email. It is an email that goes to the impacted student to introduce us, let them know that they can meet with us, let them know about the important resources on campus, namely CST and YWCA, and let them know that they are entitled to supportive measures. So supportive measures are things that the complainant can access without having to do anything else. So even if there's no investigation, even if they don't want any other action taken, they're entitled to talk to us about certain things like assistance seeking academic modifications or housing modifications, safety measures connecting to counseling like CST, and mutual contact restrictions between them and the other party. So all of those things are available to students on a case-by-case basis, but without having to initiate any kind of formal process. And after that, it's really hard to say because it's very case by case. So in most cases involving students, the complainant or the impacted student, I use the term complainant because that is the term that the federal government asks us to use in the regulations that I talked about, also sometimes called survivor or impacted student. In most cases, the impacted party retains agency over what happens next. unless it's a student concern about a faculty or staff member. So student cases, impacted student retains agency in almost all cases, unless there's an aggravating factor present. Student against a faculty or staff, the university may be required to act. In any case, impacted students are never forced to participate in our process. So they can choose not to participate, and that is fine. And in those cases, depending on the facts and whether there are other witnesses, the university's ability to respond may be limited. If they do request an investigation, our investigations are impartial and neutral, as we're required to be. We have trauma-informed investigators and 3 different procedures that apply based on who's involved and what we're talking about. And the final thing that I want to share with you is that so you may be familiar with, there's always been an exemption in our policy for drug and alcohol violations. So if someone's going through our process, they won't get in trouble for drug and alcohol related infractions or anything like that. We have now carved out another exception for COVID related violations. So the actual language from our process is on the screen in that little footnote 8. And it's pretty clear that impacted students and witnesses have amnesty. We do that so as not to chill reporting. Sexual violence includes any 1.7.1 offense. There's no time limitation on it. And while there is no special protection for respondents or people who are accused of sexual violence, those cases are weighed case by case, just like any other case. And we don't do that. That would be the people who are tasked with COVID related stuff at Stanford. So that is all I have for you today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to hand it off to one of my colleagues, Carly, and we would just ask you that you hold your questions and we'll try to get to them as soon as we can.
Thanks, Sophia. And just so everyone knows, my niece is here, who's about to be 3. So if you hear a small child in the background, she's getting in the bath. So hopefully that'll be somewhat of a distraction. But if you hear a small child singing or doing whatever else, that's what's going on. And my apologies in advance. And I will try to make sure that you still get all the information, even if she's singing or something in the background. Okay. All right, can y'all see? Okay, so going to do a really brief overview of the education team side of things in the Shared Title IX office. And just as a reminder and to note that it is Healthy Relationships Awareness Month this month, so would encourage you to check out our Instagram at Share at Stanford and sign up for our newsletters if you're interested in more content related to healthy relationships. And really any of the awareness months and other things that we might have going on, we will be sharing on our social media and in our newsletters. As a reminder, this was part of your training a number of months ago now, but for the Share Education team, our vision is a campus community where everyone is empowered to express themselves and have caring relationships. And we work to actualize that vision and collaboratively end sexual and relationship violence, stalking, gender discrimination, and harassment with you all and with the rest of our community through what we call our HEART model. And that stands for healing, education, activism, response, and transformation. Our education, a large part of our education, not only during February and Healthy Relationships Month, focuses on healthy relationships. And in this strange time where some of us are in family homes or living with groups of friends or other Stanford students or on campus and dealing with different restrictions, we do believe that healthy relationships can exist not only and can and should exist not only in sexual or dating relationships or intimate relationships, but are important in families, between family members, friends, in professional and academic settings. And we can work to provide education on all of those topics for you, any groups you're a part of, and would encourage you to reach out to us if you or any student organizations or classes may have interest in more conversations about these topics. Y'all also should be somewhat familiar with this, or at least it might ping some memory deep in your brain from September-ish. This consent starter kit is a great place to start if you or a group that you're a part of, or your residents, if you want to explore building a culture of consent with your community. So this is available and something that you can work through individually, that your residents can work through individually, and you can have discussions about as a group. There are 4 different activities that can be modified to meet whatever needs you or your residents have. Important to note is that we are conducting any and all trainings that we can virtually. So if your residents have any interest in upstander training and how that might be translated into the virtual realm, we absolutely can provide that for you. So if you have a desire to learn more about that, you can check out the website there, upstander.stanford.edu, and also request a training. If you have an interest in any other topic related to sexual or relationship violence, stalking, sexual harassment, gender-based discrimination, healthy sexuality, healthy relationships, almost anything you can think of, you can make a training request here at this website. And then I did just want to provide a kind of brief reminder and really empower y'all to know that not only are we able to provide support in the virtual environment that we're in, but we do believe that y'all can as well. And so if you have questions about how this can happen or how some of these concepts might translate, whether it's transparency, safety, choice, collaboration as parts of a trauma-informed approach, we would love to chat with you more about that as well. And I know my colleagues might be touching on this further too. And if you're interested as, in your role as RAs or in some other role you have in learning more about this, we can definitely get you more materials. And then as a reminder and as some hopefully helpful information, we do have quite a number of educational videos available on our website and on our YouTube channel that are available for you to access at any point in time if you have if you want to learn more about specific topics and want to delve a little bit more deeply. They are generally around 20 minutes or less and really range in topics that sometimes we're only able to touch briefly on in the training opportunities that we have, but could be really helpful for you in your role as RAs. And in particular, there are series like building cultures of consent. There are series on supporting survivors, and there is even a video on supporting somebody who's been accused. So that is definitely something that you can encounter in your role as an RA if you haven't already, and would encourage you to check that out and learn more. And we're always adding new content as well. So I mentioned at the beginning that we would love to have you follow our Instagram and to sign up for our newsletter. So here are the Instagram handle and the link to sign up for our newsletter, bit.ly.com/Sarah supporters. And I just have this photo up as a reminder of the awesome times that we used to get to have together. Hopefully we'll have together again soon, gathering on White Plaza. And then I'll just leave you with our contact information. It may be a little bit confusing, but our email address and our website still have Sarah in them. So our email address is still sarahoffice@stanford.edu if you want to reach our professional staff team. And our website is sarah.stanford.edu. And you still are welcome to call us as we do get our office phones forwarded to us. So please feel free to reach out to us should you have any questions, want any trainings, or have outreach that you would like us to attend and share more information about what it is that we can provide. And I am going to pass it to Helen.
Thanks, Carly. Okay, so the Stanford Confidential Support Team consists of myself, and our newest member is Saheen Baloo, who's our administrative associate. And we need to update our picture here because we actually have our previous administrative associate. And I wish you could see Saheen because she's often the first voice for a student connecting with CST, or when we're back at King's Coat, the first face that a student encounters. And in addition to Saheen and I, we have Melissa Murphy is a licensed clinical social worker, and then we have two other psychologists, Louisa Ladd and Stacy Lynn. So our mission is to support connection, healing, and thriving among Stanford community members impacted by sexual, relationship, and gender-based violence through confidential, trauma-informed consultation, counseling, and outreach. And most commonly, our community consists of Stanford students who are really the focus of our support. We also do sometimes support other community members, faculty, staff, other allies who are wishing to support students. And the core of our service is around confidentiality, empowerment, and specialized support. So as our name suggests, confidentiality is something that we take really seriously. So 99% of what is said at CST stays at CST. We are bound by a professional licensure, so we actually cannot share information outside of our team about a student we're working with without explicit written consent from that student. We do not report any experiences to the Title IX office or other university authorities. We do have some limitations to confidentiality, where I say that 1% is around things like harm to a child or an elderly person, or if a student tells us that they are planning to seriously harm or kill another person, we're not permitted by law to keep those things confidential. The other one that comes up is sometimes around self-harm. So a student saying that they're thinking about hurting themselves. And we, will work with the student's wishes to keep that private and confidential and help the student come up with a good safety plan, unless in rare circumstances in that we believe someone is about to go out of our office and seriously hurt themselves, that we sometimes will bring others in to help keep the person safe. We use an empowerment-based approach, so we work with students in a collaborative manner to do our best to understand and meet that student's individualized needs in their particular unique situation. And knowing that an important part of what makes something traumatic is that it is something that is out of the person's control. And so we attempt to give control back to the student and help to restore power over what happens next. And we all have extensive training and experience working from a trauma-informed perspective, and provide tailored resources and referral information. In sum, it's a free confidential resource. We think of ourselves as a centralized point of contact, or perhaps a first stop for a student who maybe is unsure about what steps to take next. So if all else fails, a student can always come to CST and have a safe, confidential conversation where we can help them figure out what next steps to take, and then we can be available to support the student in whatever their needs may be. Knowing that impacted students present with a wide range of needs, we attempt to provide a range of supportive services. So we always start with what we call an initial consultation or an initial visit, which is really, we actually have, like a checklist of things we offer, and we provide that to help tailor our conversation so we can really understand what kind of support a student is looking for, and then we'll make a plan for next steps, which could be continuing to work with CST, or it could be other steps. We provide what we call brief support, which is anywhere from around 2 to 10 sessions where we would continue to perhaps talk about information, rights, reporting options. We'd be supporting a student around safety, planning, perhaps helping a student with skills or other things they can do to cope or manage what's coming up. And then we also do provide ongoing psychotherapy for things like PTSD or depression that may be persisting and interfering with a student's life. We always start with an initial visit. So I thought I would say just a little bit more about what exactly happens in that visit. So again, we start with understanding what is bringing the student to CS. We provide emotional support throughout the session so we can validate a student's experience and normalize what's happening with the student. We provide support and guidance in navigating various systems and resources, both on and off campus. We provide information about rights and reporting options so we can talk through what Title IX reporting and the Title IX process looks like. We can talk with students about police reporting. We can help facilitate consultation with Title IX or the police if a student has more questions or maybe wants to keep things anonymous. We can help a student connect with the various resources on and off campus. We can support a student with getting academic accommodations or support, or making residential changes, getting emergency housing, that kind of thing. And then we always end that session with a plan for next steps, which is often to continue to set up another meeting at CST. And for some students, it may be just getting emotional support, having someone to listen and hear and bear witness to what the student is experiencing, and we can provide that. It may be continued sort of logistical kinds of support, or it could be, referrals to other resources. Could be beginning psychotherapy, and we will help a student determine whatever the plan is in their unique situation. So it's, again, a 30 to 60-minute consultation. We can offer a one-time anonymous appointment, which can sometimes reduce barriers for a student coming to meet with us. We, and a student can end the appointment at any time and absolutely does not need to share any information they're not comfortable sharing with us. We never push a student to share, while being available to hear whatever a student would like to be able to talk about. We never push a student to share details of their experience. We utilize a trauma-informed approach, which assumes that trauma is widespread, and the impact of trauma is widespread and profound, and that there are paths for recovery. We recognize that trauma impacts all individuals within the program, organization, or system, including its own workforce. And we respond by doing our best to fully integrate knowledge about trauma into policies, procedures, and practices, and to seek to actively resist re-traumatization. And then, so that there are 6 trauma-informed principles that guide our work: safety, trustworthiness, peer support, collaboration, empowerment, voice, and choice, and then also an understanding and integration of culture, history, gender, and intersectionality. We at CST strive to center diversity, inclusion, and intersectionality into our programming and services. And that, includes acknowledging where, we are still growing and learning and aware that things like white supremacy, racism are inherent to our institution, and continuing to examine and interrogate where those things are showing up in our work. We, that said, endeavor to do our best to provide a welcoming and inclusive space for all students, recognizing that each student's situation is unique and also that needs change over time. And again, just to emphasize that we use a collaborative approach to tailor services to a student's individualized needs. We also can provide other kinds of consultation and support to faculty, staff, student staff, and that includes you all in your role. So we are here for you if you could use some support on how to support a student, or also if you or other students are looking for support, perhaps in creating a trauma-informed, survivor-friendly program of some sort. There's a number of ways to connect with us. Right now, we are we're fully remote, but we have a 24-hour hotline that we encourage you to use for any urgent matters. It either comes to someone directly in our team, or we have an after hours and weekend service, or sometimes use help from that service if we are not immediately available. But that line never goes to voicemail. So it's the best way to reach us for an urgent matter or for something, like I said, after hours or weekends. A student can also book appointments through the Vaden web portal. And I just want to suggest there that if a student is ever having trouble finding appointments through the web portal, that not all of our availability is there. So they can always call us to find out about other times available. And then just to reiterate, so a lot of questions about what's happening during COVID-19. Again, we are remote and offering our full range of services, either by Zoom. So you can do an initial consultation by Zoom or by phone. And the one limitation is that for students who are outside of California, we can provide consultation, we can provide brief support by phone. However, if a student is living outside of California, we can't provide the formalized therapy for things like for mental health conditions like PTSD or depression, but we can still provide some consultation and brief support. For students who are in California, again, we can provide our full range of services remotely. So I will end there because I know it is time for Ellie to share information about our newest Stanford resource, our collaboration with the YWCA.
Thank you so much. Let's see. I'm getting so much better at sharing on Zoom. Nice. All right, so like Helen said, my name is Ellie. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Survivor Advocacy Coordinator with the YWCA here at Stanford. I'm so excited to be presenting to you all today because this is actually our first quarter on campus operating as an office. So you're some of the first students to actually get this information. So I hope that you spread it to your co-staff, your friends, your residents, and other communities you're a part of. So yeah, let's get started. A little bit about us. YWCA Golden Gate Silicon Valley is on a mission to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. What that looks like in practice is that we empower survivors and their communities, we achieve solutions to homelessness for survivors, and we inspire opportunities for economic security. What that means for on campus is that we provide confidential support to survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, and human trafficking. Very similar to CST, that confidential support means that we have no reporting obligations to Stanford. Our only reporting obligation would be child abuse, elder abuse, or threats of harm to oneself or others, but no reporting obligations to Stanford, and we're an independent organization there. In the way that we approach our work, what's really important to us is being survivor-centered. We know that healing and justice looks different for everyone, and our advocates really lean into that. That means that when we're supporting, we want to provide all the information and all of the options, but then we ultimately empower the survivor to make their own choices, and the advocate will follow every step of the way without judgment or expectation, which is something we're very proud of. Especially during this time, we're also leaning into accessibility, which means that we've talked to a lot of different community members about how to make our hours and just the way that we operate as accessible as possible, which I'll touch on a little bit later. So what our office actually looks like, we offer immediate and long-term support services to survivors. An important distinction is that we do not provide services to anyone who is accused of harm or someone who has harmed, so we can only provide that support to survivors. Our office is located in Kingscote Gardens alongside all the other amazing resources here. And we also have a satellite office in Palo Alto for someone who might not feel comfortable accessing services on campus for whatever reason it is. Obviously, we're virtual right now, but we cannot wait to get back and share space with all of you. Our office, we're also excited to be able to have hours in the evening and on weekends so that we can kind of meet that need on campus, and I'll explain those hours a little bit later. In addition, we have a 24/7 support line run by YWCA staff in Santa Clara County, And we do accompaniments to sexual assault forensic exams 24/7. Right now, that's obviously virtual as well, but once the hospitals allow that to happen again, we're very excited to resume in person. And finally, we serve all members of the Stanford community. That means students, faculty, staff, families, service workers, visitors, anyone who is connected to Stanford is able to access our services, which we're really, really excited about. So when I say support services, what exactly do I mean? A few different parts, but the first one is criminal advocacy. So that's looking at systems navigation as far as the criminal justice system, working with law enforcement or the district attorney's office, and the Title IX process here at Stanford. Our advocates are not lawyers, they're not attorneys, but they're there to help explain the process to the survivor and walk through the process step by step with them. We empower them to use their own voice and really encourage them to do that throughout the process. That accompaniment also includes sexual assault forensic exams, intimate partner violence exams, filing a report with law enforcement, detective interviews, court accompaniment. And obviously this process can be incredibly overwhelming, and so our advocates can help with case updates, making sure the survivor knows when they need to be where, and just really helping make a very cold process as warm as possible. We also have an incredible legal team, and the biggest thing that we do there is restraining order preparation. So if someone is looking for a domestic violence restraining order or a civil harassment restraining order relating to sexual assault, our team can help with that. Immigration services as well, we support survivors in getting visas. And so if someone was looking for a visa, we can support that, and they often lead to permanent residency, which is really nice. And that can happen without the knowledge of the person who harmed if their visa was previously linked to them. In the same way that we do support and accompaniment with the criminal justice process, we do the same for civil and family law. And we're also part of a group of organizations that are in the Family Justice Center, which means that someone can come in with a few different legal concerns and all the community partners will work together to help support them. So we're very excited to be part of that. In terms of personal advocacy, we always want to acknowledge that the survivor is a whole person and there's so many other things going on in their life. And so we want to alleviate that stress however possible by helping with case management, making sure that they're up to date on anything that's going on, and helping them with things that might feel menial but overwhelming at times. We support with meeting basic needs or campus needs, whether it's looking at housing changes, support with academics, or things beyond campus like emergency shelter, social services, financial assistance. We're there to help with that. And since the YWCA has been in the community for decades, we have really strong community partnerships, and we're able to refer out in a very warm way when needed. The final part of the services that we provide is leaning into that counseling and therapy as a form of healing. Very similar to what Helen said, this counseling is more of that short-term, immediate support. So working through kind of processing the situation, as well as thinking about safety, both mentally and physically for the survivor. And therapy is more of a long-term support, and we have an internal therapy department for that. And we're very excited to say that therapy is now free for all survivors due to a new grant that we just got. So that's really exciting. And all of our services are free for survivors. For those who like to process in community, we also have support groups. And like I mentioned before, there is a 24/7 crisis support line. I'm going to put the number on the screen for a second. So that top number is the Santa Clara County YWCA support line. Our advocates are trained and can answer those calls. If someone has questions about a safe exam, they can call that number, or if they just need general crisis counseling. The SAFE can look different from county to county, and they're up to date on what that looks like here in Santa Clara County. And that second number there is the YWCA at Stanford line. So if someone calls that, it will go directly to myself or two other advocates. And I'm going to share the hours in a second, but we'll have a set of walk-in hours every week. And so if you call during those hours, we'll always answer the phone. And if it's outside of those hours and you leave a voicemail, we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Obviously, if it's an emergency, calling 911, and that 24/7 number is always available for crisis counseling. And what our team kind of looks like, it's myself as the coordinator of this office. Avani is our campus engagement and prevention specialist, so doing outreach and education, mostly with grad students, but can extend to undergrads. And then Carla and Sophie are our incredible advocates, and I'm so excited to be working with them. And Carla is actually able to provide all services in Spanish as well, if that's supportive for members of our community. One additional thing to add, I actually was in your shoes very recently. I was a student staff member at Stanford for 2 years, and I know that a lot of the role I was not prepared for going into it, and a lot of it was learning as I went. And so as we crafted the YWCA office, we really wanted to keep that in mind. I know that a lot of you take on kind of the informal role of an advocate through the work that you do, and a lot of the time you'll accompany your residents to a lot of these appointments and you'll try to help them with accommodations. And we really want to encourage that you also reach out to the other support services here on campus, whether it's YWCA, CST, the Share office. The network that we build around survivors will allow them to be more resilient in the long run. And so if you're ever feeling like you have a lot of that responsibility, we're here to have that conversation on how to spread it across other campus partners. We're also here for processing before and after supporting a resident. Vicarious trauma is very real. I'm sure you've heard about it, but it can be really hard to listen to things like that and feeling like you didn't do enough or feeling very lost in that process. And so we're always here for those types of conversations as well. And the final thing I really want to emphasize is that all questions are valid, and we're here as a non-judgmental source. So if you ever want to send us an email and you know that you should know this and you don't, please reach out. It's better to learn later than never, and there's always opportunities for growth. So always feel free to do that. Again, here's our contact information. So our number is there. That's the Stanford number that goes to myself and 2 other advocates. Our email, very straightforward, stanford@yourYWCA. If you want a referral, you can email that, questions, or if you want to set up an appointment. And then our walk-in hours are on the side. So weekends from 10 to 3, Thursdays and Fridays from 4 to 8, and Mondays from 8 to 2. So right now that's happening virtually. So if you call, we can talk on the phone, and soon we'll have an online scheduler so you can make that appointment in advance. But we're very excited to be able to have these hours kind of at abnormal hours to kind of help build that support. But then for our existing clients and for accompaniments, we're available during the day as well. And just a reminder that the 24/7 support line is always there. The CST support line is always there. Yeah, that is it from me. Thank you so much. If anyone has any feedback for me specifically, please feel free to email. That's my specific email. And I'm very excited to be working with you all. I'm going to stop screen sharing. And then we have the rest of the time for questions, and some of you submitted them in advance, which is very nice. But if any questions came up from any of our presentations, you can drop those in the chat and we can go through those.
And I am just going to stop the recording so that everyone feels comfortable if you do have a question.